I feel like Charlie Brown following these two erudite and well-spoken people. I was going to say something like about a ducky and a horsey.
Go ahead.
After you describe some, In any case, what I really hear the concern in the community about teardowns. I hear the concern in the community about the red tape that would be added by the regulation of certain architectural features of the homes. And I feel that the presence here of everyone tonight and the concerns that were expressed for inclusion, Mona, particularly by you actually, and also by you, Cindy, are a welcome conversation in Narberth, and I think it really bodes well for our future. And it's a fulfillment of our comprehensive plan and a commitment to be a welcoming place for people of every kind. And I'm so encouraged by the fact that that conversation can happen here. I've never heard it happen in all the time I've been on council or lived in Narberth. To those of you who see this ordinance as adding another government regulation, I get your concern. In this instance, I see the necessity of regulations that support a healthier world, the common good, by preventing unnecessary waste of energy, tearing down perfectly good houses, and preserving the unique livability of our neighborhood. That is the sum total of all of the vernacular homes in the community. I know that if you'd like sort of look at any individual home on any given block, you might not think it's anything special, but these are the homes that have been written about by architectural theorists and historians and people who value culture for decades. And the vernacular fabric of Narberth is a treasure. And whether you see it or not, it just is. I mean, it's in its ordinariness. And I'm a person who loves the ordinary. I don't like the language of heritage preservation. I find it offensive and disgusting and yucky, and I always have. For 30-some years, I found it off-putting and elitist and gross. And I understand why Maureen's children feel put off by it and excluded. And in fact, when we first started talking about historic preservation many years ago, when I was on the Planning Commission in 2006, I remember having really sharp words with Dave Brower about it. Like, I always thought, I said to them, to Dave and Heidi and Jim, don't you architects have any optimism that you can create better things in the future? Like, what's this obsession with old things? Don't you believe in your ability to design good new things? And why would we protect old things when you can make new things? But I see now, and I've really seen how the impact of the old home, of the elimination of the old homes. Wake up tomorrow morning and your neighbor's home is gone, and now there's a generic house there that's for sale for $1.4 million. Who could possibly be your neighbor? I'm not going to knock the people who bought the house down the street from me for $1.4 million. They're very nice people. I like them. That's not the point. But there's a limited number of these affordable homes in Narberth, and there's a kind of limit to who can afford a home that's going to cost north of $1 million. It's just, that's the reality. I understand why realtors like that. Not all realtors, but I understand why, if I were a realtor on a commission, that I'd want to certainly be selling homes at the higher end. I understand why the developers want to tear them down and maximize their profits. That's their business. But we're in the business of a common good for a community, of creating rules and regulations that to the best of our ability, they're not perfect. And Mona, I really understand your insistence that we strive to be more perfect. And I think we tried to do it with the form-based code and we missed the mark. And then, I think within the first couple of years, we made an omnibus ordinance revision that included dozens of items that were changed and repealed and replaced. And I think we could do that again here. I also think to the people who are concerned about the red tape, and I take that seriously, I think it's a burden. Zoning applications are a burden. Building applications are a burden. I've done my share of building applications. And you know what? It wasn't any better under the old zoning ordinance. In fact, it was much harder because it was really hard to understand under this old zoning ordinance what it was telling you you could do and what you couldn't do. It was hard to know what your rights were, at least under the new ordinance, the new zoning. The average person can look at the regulations and understand what they're allowed to do. So I take exception of anybody who says that the new zoning, that the form-based zoning code in some way has contributed to additional construction of building in Narberth. It hasn't. Look around, guys. Go to any other town within a 1,000-mile radius of here, and you'll see a lot of construction that's happened in the last 15 years. It's not just Narberth. In fact, Narberth, if anything, it's been exceptionally well maintained. Some modest additions. Yes, their apartment buildings appear big, but they're really modest by comparison to what our neighbors have been doing. Anyway, I'm going on too long, maybe. It strikes me as common sense that modest houses in Narberth are unique and special to the people who can buy them, rather than be sold to opportunistic developers in the business of scraping and replacing to maximize profit. To me, this measure to save affordable houses show we care about our community and the welfare of our community and our neighbors who could maybe our children who might be able to afford one of these homes, who has the gumption to like bootstrap a renovation and do a DIY and like fix it up. You know, that it's the only shot they've got. And I get that the language of the code is filled with complexity and words that evoke exclusivity, and that it's a complicated ordinance. I get that. But the game is rather simple. We want to prevent the teardowns. And I do think there's an interconnectivity between the teardown portion of the code and the red tape part that really does burden us with a lot of additional applications and regulations and review and all of that. But they are interconnected because I can promise you, because I think I saw it happen on Dudley, where a home was kind of completely rebuilt, basically piece by piece, and you don't recognize the original home that was there, even though the home was never taken down. But it's like, it's a McMansion, it's a brand new home. They figured out a way to do it without demolishing the existing home. Could the same family who might buy a home in Narberth for $350 afford a home at 1.4? You know, could your friends, family, relations do that? I get that we don't like every aspect. I don't want to make the perfect the enemy of the good, or the good enough. I appreciate that the Planning Commission worked really hard to reduce the impact and to really focus on the subtractions and not the addition of things. We do have a form-based code that regulates those. And it's in the implementation of these rules, I think, that we can do a lot as a council, and I think if we can agree to streamline the rules, if we can design rules and instruct the borough staff to make this a really simple process for people who need these administrative reviews and certificate of appropriateness, I think we can make the adjustments, Mona, that you were asking us to make it simple. I think I'm just going to stop. I really want to thank everybody for participating tonight. I really love this community. I care so much for all of you who spoke on both sides of this issue. Carol Marie, keep coming to these meetings and speaking, because I just never tire of hearing your voice. Thank you for all your... You never get tired of me? No, I really appreciate how much you care for this community. You noticed? I've noticed. Yeah. And thanks everyone who worked on this.